has asked, now they're looking at the possibility of becoming public interveners and want some sense of what's involved with that. The thing that I would say about that is, from what I have learned about, and I know George has been a public intervener, from what I have learned, I've learned about the process, both as a legal procedure and in terms of the distribution of the wealth that exists in the hearings, where you have a lot of people who are there to present information on behalf of the developer, and a very, very small amount of funds and people that are there to make the positions that the people and the communities and the other parties would feel as important to introduce. That disproportion, and along with the fact that in most cases in Wisconsin, since it's going to, I don't know exactly what the reason for this is, but in most cases public interveners have to sign non-disclosure statements. And as a person that's interested in that my neighbors, the constituents in the town that I live in, I would be very uncomfortable with the idea that I was going to not be able to communicate with the constituents and with other parties whose lives will be and property and so forth to be impacted by this openly. So for me, there's a very, this red line, I could make it as fat, it could be half of this chart and it wouldn't be more symbolically accurate, because right now, unfortunately, that line was crossed, the CapEx 2020. But in Badger County, we actually have 18 months of time to ask questions and get information. So this allows us to be able to, I feel, go back and do some of the work over the CapEx 2020 line that was not done.
And if it ever gets to a hearing process, hopefully it won't, but it will,
yes.
Then you should all appear at those hearings and say, I don't want it to come there because then it's going to come to me.
Yeah,
this is a segmented process.
ATC has told us as much as the projects are mutually dependent on each other.
And by the way, Wisconsin does have an intervener compensation rule that would pay for guys like Kirk and that sort of thing, and fighting it. The lawyers, clerical staff, everything. So, you know.
Not a lot of money, though. What can be invested.
Well, they only audit you after $30,000.
Yes, sir.
Of course, Patrick, goes back to your comments about the CapEx 2020 coming in the power station in Holden. It's my understanding that they're going to, Xcel is going to take some of that power and use it locally. They're going to drop it down to whatever voltage is okay. Then the Badger Cooley is going to take it to Madison. Is it going to end there, or is it in fact Wisconsin a flyover state? Is this merely just taking the North Dakota, South Dakota power?
Some people in the biz are referring to Wisconsin as the transmission state. And I don't know if you guys have been watching the news, but about a month, Rob, a month and a half ago, ATC entered a joint venture with Duke Energy. You guys are the second largest utility in the United States, and they are centered in North Carolina. So they're thinking about the Buffalo and the coal plant, Ridge, and the coal plants out west is feeding those air conditioners down there. Okay, and the ATC or anybody else will say no, it's a two-way street. Think about it as the interstate highway. The thing at Holman is going to be a 10-acre substation if it's built, and that's where they're going to take off and go to La Crosse.
Right, so some of the energy coming from CapEx 2020 is going to be used locally.
They have to sell this to the PSC as a need for Rochester and La Crosse, not for Chicago.
But the Badger Cooley is just going to be a conduit to Duke Energy.
Absolutely.
Well, they're stopping Madison as a temporary stop. They're going to work on.
No, I think the temporary stop's already shot down there. They got Kurt Pughes for one.
There's a lot of interest in transmission in southwest and southern Wisconsin. I need to find another chart here to get it. But basically, this is CapEx 2020 Alma to Holman, and then Holman to Madison. The second line that you see there is the Badger Cooley. If you go through the 10-year planning documents for American Transmission Company, you will see a number of other lines mentioned. Up to last spring, for example, the Badger Cooley line was proposed in tandem with the Dubuque Spring Green Madison line. The the two lines were proposed at once. This is that line here. This black infrastructure that you see there is the hub that has been built of high voltage transmission lines around Madison. And there are two lines that run from Madison into Indiana here, and there are two other lines that run to Indiana here. There is a high voltage DC line proposed across the lake in the 10-year planning document, as well as one mentioned up here to go across the lake. And this line here that runs from Genoa to Lancaster to North Monroe, right here, is in the works, as well as a line that runs from Alma to Eau Claire that's mentioned in the CapEx 2020 document. So the question is, since Wisconsin has already spent about over $1 billion in high voltage transmission lines from 2002 to 2008, which the PSC acknowledges is responsible in large part for our highest residential electric rates in the Midwest to pay for those transmission projects, that our state grid is in pretty good shape on most standards. In fact, I think we spend as much as any other states in the Midwest. So the question becomes what you're raising. And the indications are, when you look at plans on the Badger Kool-Aid document, it says that it will match a number of regional grid expansion plans, the SMART and RGOS. This happens to be one of the SMART plans. I think about $36 billion for this plan. You can see that the CapEx 2020 in the Badger plan, in the Badger Kool-Aid in there. You can see this pattern of the west to east, and that lines up pretty nicely with the marketing awareness that has been around for a number of years before wind generation became a discussion, in which we look at the average production cost of energy in the upper, this part of the United States. So we have quite a bit lower cost in the blue areas than we do in the yellow. So that under peak demand conditions where electricity costs can go up to 5, even 10 times the normal price, being able to move large amounts of electricity instantaneously through the grid to reach other markets at high volumes would indeed be a market benefit.
Is that called a flow chart, Ron?
Yes, at the speed of light.
Yeah.
The only problem is I still think like a plumber.
They also have more capacity out there than me, because XL finished a 99 megawatt coal plant out last fall out west, and they haven't put it online yet.
There's excess capacity all over the United States, coupled with 1% growth, and we need to be asking. We need to get some of this kind of discussion going at the public information phase and have our developer talk about, because they said in their plan that they will be matching the specifications of one of these grid expansion plans. But when we asked them, and some of you may have asked today at the open house meeting, what exactly is the relationship of Badger Kool-Aid and CapEx 2020 to this larger plan? How does that fit into, for example, if I can get by with investing in a system